Vivek, Rajiv, welcome again. Rajiv, first to you. Let's start with the objects. If an unlisted company wants to take over some other entity, it obviously cannot reveal too much to SEBI. These are extremely price-sensitive issues and certainly not make them public. Is it really fair to put so many restrictions and, inorganic takeovers are always binary. They may happen and there can be many a slip between the cup and the lip. Is this too unfair?
Well, I mean, it can be argued. What happens is that sometimes, see, minority investors, the major objective is to protection of minority investors. Now, if a large part of the new issue is going in for future acquisitions where the company is buying multiple companies like Baiju and others. Now, in that stage, minority shareholders are not sure about what is the right strategy, what is the right object of this company. And there needs to be some sort of protection granted. So in case there are unidentified targets, what the guidelines say that you can't have 25% or more of the issue size allocated to unidentified targets and 35% if you include the general corporate purpose. So essentially, it is restricting the issue proceeds that you cannot have while it is granting.
I take 1 minute, Vivek. What you're saying is, sorry, Rajiv, what you're saying is that suppose they raised 100 rupees. For 65 rupees, you should have an identified company. For the remaining 35, you are allowed to have unidentified. Is that SEBI's view?
Vivek, would you like to answer that?
Vivek, yeah, sorry.
What SEBI is saying is that the total primary that you raise in an IPO, not more than 35% of it can be used towards unidentified objects. Historically, and let's take a full perspective on this. While you are saying that these are stricter rules, it might so be that this is a clarity that SEBI is providing, and SEBI is being proactive in terms of guiding issuers, investors and bankers, how they should be looking at raising capital from the primary markets. So historically, SEBI was clear that in terms of the disclosure requirements, any use of proceeds should be appropriately disclosed in the offer document, right? When it came to unidentified use of proceeds, SEBI gave us the flexibility that you can have general corporate purposes where you do not need to make specific disclosures about how you want to use those proceeds. And that was capped to 25%. Now, the board has approved a proposal that the unidentified use of proceeds can be extended to 35% of the issue size. So if you are raising 1,000 crores from primary issuance, up to 350 crore can be used towards inorganic opportunities or any other unidentified opportunities. This to our mind is something which is proactive. We believe that this gives reasonable clarity to a lot of issuers. And also from an investor's perspective, because this is a public market fundraise, investors need to have reasonable clarity on how the funds are going to be deployed. Okay. They are investing for the future. Yeah,
I agree, Vivek. But, per se, you would assume, the basic understanding is that if you are not very savvy about being able to identify a good company stock from a bad company stock, you normally go and become a fixed deposit saver or, someone using safe avenues. There is always a risk element in the capital markets. And you normally look at the promoter. If you think the promoter has created a great product like Zomato or Baiju's, then you're ready to give the person money in the hope that he will continue to do it well. Is it even required to put so many buckets and restrictions and categories? Can it simply crimp entrepreneurial style?
Well,
yes, Rajiv, please go ahead.
In the sense that if it's not that we don't have to trust the promoter. If they've already identified certain targets and they are making disclosures to that effect, they can actually go ahead and raise 100% for that acquisition. But only what the challenge has happened is that there are multiple acquisitions which the new age companies are making. Okay. Some of them are actually fitting into their strategy. Some of them may or may not. Now, the idea for is how do we protect minority shareholders? So idea is to put a certain cap that from the issue which is being raised, you cannot have more than 35% being put for general corporate purpose and unidentified targets.
Okay.
If it is already
Right, so-
identified,
okay.
you can raise any amount of money you want.
Okay, so
Up
both
to
of you are
100%.
you're comfortable with, you don't think this will crimp entrepreneurs' style or ambitions, Rajiv?
I don't think so. In fact, it will give a little more discipline to the markets. It will ensure that the users of the capital, the promoters and the companies which are issuing money, and it just also this is for companies with essentially they do not have track record at this stage. These
Fair
are
enough.
new companies, so there is reasonable restriction to be put.
Okay. Yeah, they don't have track record in the listed space, I agree, but some of them are reasonably well known in the unlisted space. Yes, we don't know too much about their financials. What about the other, the fact that existing promoters or promoter shareholders will not be allowed to quit the company completely, only 50%. You expect that this can scare away private equity and venture funds? The last 24 months, we have seen a tidal wave of flows. Can rules like these scare away fresh investors, Vivek?
So there is essentially, I mean, if you see at the heart of it, there is a conflict of interest when there is an offer for sale, because there is an exiting shareholder and there is an incoming shareholder. Now, generally, the exiting shareholder is far better informed than the incoming shareholder. And if you have, so that leads to a strong conflict of interest. Now, in the case that if you permit 100% of sale to happen, now in that situation, the existing shareholders can pass the buck and move on. And more gullible, more people who are dependent on
Get the point, Rajiv.
rely
No,
upon
I get the point.
existing good names.
I get the point. The skepticism with the probably healthy skepticism with which SEBI comes. But my whole point is that the capital market is primarily, recognizes that the market will test those risks. Do you always need someone to handhold? Do you always want a protective SEBI in these issues? I mean, SEBI is not meant for protection of the investor as much as it is meant for, ensuring that rules are followed. Is this a SEBI that is getting way too protective? Your thoughts, Vivek?
So Lata, let me put some facts and figures, and then we can debate on this. So one, out of the 63 IPOs that have happened in this current calendar year, there are the average percentage stake that has been sold in the IPO is just 23%. SEBI mandates that over a period of time, companies need to ensure 25% shareholding, public shareholding. A lot of these companies will have to meet that parameter over the next few years. There are only 5 companies wherein the percentage of stakes sold to public has been more than 40%. Okay. Right now, also the way we read the regulations, and out of the 63 IPOs that have happened in the year, there has broadly been only one case, where this limit has been breached.
Okay.
So we do not believe that, this is something which is going to limit the ability of the promoters or the financial investors to sell their stake or monetize in the form of an IPO.
Fair enough.
The limit itself is very, very wide. We have not seen too many financial sponsors trying to maximize this opportunity in terms of monetizing, unless there is a case where the fund life comes to an end.
Okay.
And the limit is very, very broad. And I would like to just make one correction in the way Yash interpreted the second part of this amendment, which is where there is any public, any shareholder who holds less than 20% stake.
Yes.
The limit to which they can sell is 10% of the pre-issue shareholding of the issuer, and not 10% of their shareholding.
Okay. Yeah.
So assuming there is a shareholder who is holding 18% stake, as per the
Fair point. No, Vivek, point taken. Actually, the graphics came on as 10% of pre-issue capital. it was just probably rapidly, mentioned for saving time.
Limit is very, very wide, Lata. As I told you, not...
No, I take your point. I mean, your data is unimpeachable. If the way in which foreign shareholders have exited doesn't give us cause of concern, then perhaps the rules are serving a purpose without scaring away any foreign investors. I take back the charge. We have to go to a break. We have lots more questions for you, gentlemen. Just stay on. Welcome back. We have been discussing with Vivek Toshniwal of Axis Capital and with Rajiv Shah of RBSA Capital about the new rules that SEBI has announced for IPO issuances, the promoters who want to exit and anchor investors, the objects of the issue. A whole host of rules have come in. Rajiv, Vivek, thank you for your patience. The other rule is about anchor investors not being allowed to get out too soon. Rajiv, is this a rule that was much required?
Well, I think there was a need to bring a little bit of discipline. See, anchored by very definition have to be anchored. I mean, they cannot behave and act like momentum investors. And they have the extraordinary privilege of getting allotment in a preferential way. I think there is some cost to be paid for that. And see, the public actually comes, they look at these marquee investors, they look at these famous names, and gullible small investors would put money because these marquee names have put money. Now,
precisely, Rajiv, precisely for that.
They can exit after 30 days.
Yeah, I take your point. But precisely for that, why should 50% be allowed to get out in 30 days?
And I would have loved if they would have extended it the whole through 90 days or something, because essentially they are getting that privilege of investing ahead of the public. And I mean, it can be argued both ways, but there is my simple point is anchor investors should act like anchors and should support and give, and that would bring a long-term discipline. Many a times you would see that on the day of exit, there is a sudden price drop,
yes,
which happens, and the whole market goes for the toss on the 30th day of the issue.
Fair enough.
And that should not happen. So there is need to bring a little more discipline there. I think I'm in favor of that. I personally would have thought that this 30-day could have been done 90-day or maybe something more.
For the entire 100% of the anchor book. Yeah, Vivek, same question to you. Do you think this requires actually more tightening?
Our view is that, anchor investors should be serious investors. 90-day, to our mind, is a reasonable time frame. We believe that SEBI is probably, figuring out, how the markets and investors react to this, and then they might decide on the future strategy in terms of whether this entire 50% limit should be made 100% for 3 months or not. Right now, I think this is a gradual approach which SEBI has followed. It is good for the investors who are really serious and willing to take long-term bets. And the objective of anchor investors is that they should inspire confidence in the issuer as well as to the other public at large. This is, to our mind, a good approach and will bring in a lot of sanity in terms of investors indicating anchor interest for IPOs.
Okay. With that, just one general question to you, Rajiv. Anything else in the IPO rules, or can we go to the preferential issue? Any general comment you want to make?
I think these are good for getting a little more price discipline, less volatility in the market. So by and large, we should favor them, and let's see how it goes. I mean, these are not cast in stone, and these rules can always be reviewed as we go forward.
Okay. All right. We don't have too much time, but Vivek, what would you make of the preferential issue, especially in the light of what happened in the PNB housing case? Do you think this resolved that problem?
Yes, perhaps the idea to get an independent valuer wherever there is a change in control or more than 5% of the preferential issue being allocated as a percentage of capital, getting an independent valuer's opinion will help and perhaps instill more confidence to the investors who are voting. This is a great measure. Additionally, in line with the IPO lock-in requirements, SEBI has also reduced the lock-in period to just 6 months.
Yes.
Which itself, is a very good change. and a proactive measure taken by SEBI. We believe that, similar to how QIPs were happening, a lot of issuers may now opt for preferential issues because 6 months is a reasonable time frame to get serious investors as well as get the flexibility of doing the process very, very quickly.
Oh, really? I thought that 6 months was, giving promoters too much of a liberty. I mean, if you have been given a preferential issue, should you not be showing more commitment? Well, I was wanting to ask you about the valuation report. But Rajiv, your thoughts on promoters being given a preferential issue and still allowed to get out a little too quickly?
So, Bhatta, before I come to that, maybe I'll add on to what Vivek said on the valuation issue.
Yes.
See, what's happening is that essentially market is the minority stocks are getting traded. Hence, many a times these preferential allotments lead to a major change of control, or there is a major event happening associated with that. So it is, and many a times the market price is not a right reflective of that strategic transaction. Therefore, it is important and very pertinent that a proper valuation by a proper qualified team be done there to take a view. That's